So I've been journaling on and off for most of my life. I've filled up many a copybook, many different mad ramblings and drawings, practiced automatic writing and automatic drawing, seeing what comes up from the subconscious. But it wasn't until I began to take it seriously did things start to change. My writings took on more of a prayer, a dialogue with some form of spirit. Unbeknownst to me, my writing style changed over time, and I began to enter a very serious dialogue with a very deep part of me that started a journey. O great one, gone is your judgment, long is your comfort, and far is your guidance. I am no longer as aware of my true self. I've been torn in half, or twice, or perhaps 3 times. I am no longer a boy. I've crossed the point of no return, and yet here I am. My soul boarded a ship to nowhere, afloat for far too long. Now it leaks and rots by the bow. I want to jump out and submerge myself into the chaos of the deep, but I fear I will find comfort in sinking to the bottom. I've been clashing heads with God, worshipping false idols in the business class, reserved section of Satan's home. This home has a balcony view of the true underworld beneath, where hundreds of thousands weep and cry, bellowing pleas of mercy as they suffer in the deep. I want a ladder to salvation, but I'm afraid of my fingers being stepped on at the top. I've been wanting it all. Forgiveness without worship, mercy without justice. The deep is calling me. So what if I jump ship? Will God catch me, or will Satan? Do I dare utter or even spell out their names? After all, such profound language is reserved for the deepest of thought. Do I dare to go deep? The Leviathan near swallowed me whole. The more I resist, the more it follows. A hook for a hand and a lie to uphold. Tick-tock Ben. Okay, so like I said in my last video, some people find God through finding the love and the peace and the miracles and the joyous nature of life. And other people find God through going through the grime, filth and dirt of life, finding the devil first, so to speak. Because if you can acknowledge that your habits and behaviours are very similar to what looks like demonic possession, you don't have to buy into all that stuff, but from a psychological point of view, if the habits themselves look like something that resembles a possession of a dark entity, if you consciously catch yourself and you're aware of, hold on a minute, it looks like the darker nature, the spirit realm of evil, it looks pretty present in my life. It matches up. If you're able to recognize that, well then you kind of go, well, if that's real, maybe the good's real. Maybe it's all real, you know? Maybe it's not all just symbolic myth that it actually is, that's actually speaking to something very real that's happening. So that's what I mean by I was coasting along life and I was writing down in my journal what was going on in my day-to-day life. So reading back over them, it really is obvious just to kind of what type of spirit I was communing with. It was very dark. It didn't have my best interests at heart. I am ready to curl up and die. I want to give my life to someone like a child. I feel incapable on every dimension. I hate myself. I am hollow. I am afraid. I don't want to do this anymore. The only thing that brightens my eyes at the idea of some hard drugs and a life of perverted sex-crazed acts. Fill my pain with sexual deviancy, scratch my soul with drugs, tickle my being with more drugs. Poetry? Fuck you. I've never felt this incapable. I've never felt like such a loser. Raw, desolate filth,
Luciferian intellect, blissful pleasure, masking painful reality. I am at my wit's end. I feel like a big change coming. I entered a new stage of life, one of filth and grime, one of dirt and scum.
So I was communing with some type of entity that was dark, almost like it was harvesting my energy, my louche, from a Monroe point of view, Robert Monroe. The habits that went along with this, the darker nature to life, where, you know, you have nothing but like dark negative energy to just vomit down onto a page. The habits and behaviours and lifestyles that go with that type of frequency that you're inhabiting, for me at least, was very, very ugly. And like I said, it resembled something that of demonic possession. What I mean by that is, I was engaging in habits that did nothing good for my growth and, you know, development. The only like happiness that I got from life was latching on to some form of pleasure. And this is where this, like, you know, religious idea of hedonism is so powerful to people that are, you know, newly believers, because they realize that, like, hedonism is very destructive. It's just, all it does is suck your dopamine out from you, and then it leaves you with nothing to show for it, and you're just left in this depleted state. So I was just chasing pleasure, and I would do that by maxing out my dopamine circuits by smoking weed, eating processed, sugary, fatty foods, and indulging in all sorts of porn all across the internet from an early age, you know, just maxing out your dopamine. And like, it mightn't seem all that bad, and maybe like a million of you can relate because it's very common, obviously, but for me it was something that I abused and used too much to compensate for the lack of, you know, wholeness I felt in my soul. So I would abuse these habits and behaviors, and so it left me always making me feel very like shameful and full of like, well, I'm not living up to my potential. This feels very ugly. So, you know, when you're watching porn, what are you doing? You're cooking out. You're watching another guy having sex with a woman. It's just the most pathetic state you could be in as a man. That's just it. That's just the reality. That was something that really had a big role to play in my spiritual awakening, because like any, you know, cliche depiction of the devil or Satan, he's very interested in sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And those three things I embodied all throughout my 20s, even younger. This all really started very young. I was introduced to porn at a very young age. And like, you know, you probably used to hear it a million times, what happens with these things is you explore all the categories. Your brain wants more, like an addiction, and it just keeps, and you have to keep feeding it a new thing in order to feel stimulated. And I'm sure you've heard of all this 1,000 times before, but for me it was really, really real, and it was hard to get a grip on for a long time, and it always left me feeling shameful and as if I couldn't control it. That was the ultimate reality. And so if you can't control something, your habits and behaviors, something is in control of you. So you're like serving some form of master. That's why these cliche depictions of like Satan and the devil is like, you know, he's like a master, like puppeteering your life and making you do things that you don't want to do. All like traits of possession. So all of these habits, these behaviors caught up to me. And one day, out of the blue, one summer in 2023, something intervened where I heard a very distinct voice of God. Well, I can only call it God, source, creator, I don't know. It had the presence of something so powerful and otherworldly and divine and pure and moral. It knew everything that was that about me. It knew everything that could possibly be good in this world, and with perfection, divine perfection. That was the full feeling I got. And again, complete materialist atheist up until now. I had been journaling for years, and up until this point my journals took on a little bit more of a sadistic, demonic feel to how I was writing. It was almost as if I was some demon, some little orc fucking scribbling some word vomit and just cursing myself with these horrible words of negative affirmations. And here I was, almost indulging in the black magic of life, and then boom, I heard this voice. It wasn't even a voice. They say in the spiritual community of the speed of thought rather than speed of sound, because you're not hearing a sentence. It's like you get a download, you get like injected with a full message in like a long paragraph, just instantly, boom, you get the whole story in 1 second, and that's what it felt like. And this literally brought me to my knees. I fell to my knees and I did the cliche thing, the religious zealot thing, where you're like, oh my God, please, I can see the error of my ways. So basically, the message I got: imagine I'm an orc. I'm an orc running through Mordor, and I have nothing good to offer this world. I'm just pure dark, pure evil. Now imagine a light just beams in from the clouds and pierces through me. And that light is made of truth. It forced me to see the truth. I wasn't thinking or conjuring up or forcing myself to think the truth of my own ways. It just happened. It was just like something came into me where it forced me to have a look at my own habits, my own behaviours, and it was just like, and it was just like, sorry, I'm just after realising I don't have my microphone plugged in. Anyway, this camera here should be picking up my audio, but that's a bummer, because I'm not re-recording this. Anyway, what was I saying? So yeah, the beam of light was made of truth. This truth beam penetrated me and forced me to look at my own actions and behaviors, and I could see. I was like, it forced me to see the truth of reality, of like how little good I was doing, how sneaky and ugly my behaviors were, how it wasn't benefiting anyone. I was only going to be hurting people. If people I knew, people I loved knew, how I behaved in behind closed doors, they'd just be, ashamed. Just think it would be pathetic. And it was not like it was anything crazy. It's just, whatever private, shameful people get up in their own crazy sex fantasies. That's what brought me to my knees. The reality of being like, oh my God. And I just prayed to God. I was like, I see the error of my ways. Just please give me a second chance. I remember begging for a second chance to change things around, because it just felt as if I was just under this intense scrutiny. Call it a psychotic episode, call it schizophrenia, I don't know, but it was so real. It was an insane interaction I had with what felt like source.
Everything the light touches. Everything the light touches.
And then it was literally like that, overnight. Not even overnight, within a couple of minutes, in the middle of the day, I went from being a atheist that mocked the idea of God and, made fun of all of that, to a full-on God-fearing Christian.
Okay, my microphone is plugged in. Hopefully that's better. Well, so I went from this state of I was full-on God-fearing Christian, had the full-on guilt experience of feeling the error of my ways and wanting for redemption and crying out for a second chance. And for weeks after that, I had a very, very strong connection with this origin of what communed with me that day. My conscience just turned on, like it was just like this ancient system that hadn't been activated, just went, and now I had this connection, like an internet connection or a phone connection. It was so pure, it was so fully switched on. It was like it could commune with me over anything I did, anything that was going on in my life. It told me good from bad, what was good for me, what was bad for me, what was good for other people, what was bad for other people. It kind of was just like moral compass, and it did wonders for me. It steered me onto a path that really made me responsible for what I was doing in life. And in this process, I prayed. I did a lot of praying to Jesus and Mary. Read the Bible. I attempted to get into the Catholic worldview, and I had, a lot of success in the way I was operating. I felt very whole in this union with Jesus, and I considered Jesus to be a very, very close friend, because it was after this, let's say, spiritual awakening that I went through, this voice of God that just came into my head. It was after that I started to develop these abilities, or I was like able to channel different entities, because it wasn't just Jesus that I could hear. Like, God's activated my conscience like activated some form of like channeling, I don't know what to call it, channeling ability, where I was able to talk to other spirits or other entities. And a lot of the time it was Jesus, but then other intruding forces would come in that was like dark demonic stuff, and then Jesus would always show up as a friend. I know this sounds completely schizo to anyone who's not into this, but God, stay with me. Jesus would like show up as the best friend ever, like wielding a sword of truth, of pure light, and just calling Jesus' name in moments of like when my psychic abilities got out of control and I couldn't control it, and like other forces were coming in. I would like call his name and he would just show up. Like, this is all like symbolically in my head. Like, it's so difficult to describe what was going on in like terms that can be communicated like this, but yeah, so this was like a 2-week period of being able to fully commune and channel with spirits, and then I had to kind of shut it off because it got too crazy, and I consciously tried to shut it off, and then it kind of worked. But then, just when I thought I had found my footing in the spiritual realm, I was a Christian, I was happy being a Christian, then I had an outer body experience. I heard a woman's voice yell at me, and she said, "Ben, get down on this floor at once."